Hello there, everyone. Ted Lacksonen, the Country Thinker here, bringing you the 17th episode of The Eagle Has Crashed, and this will be the second and final part of November of 2029. Now, I hope everyone's having a nice Memorial Day weekend and enjoying some time with the family. And on another note, I've got some good news. Because I've been a good boy and complied with all the copyright rules, YouTube has lifted my 15-minute time limitation, so I'm now free to run past the 15-minute mark if that's what it takes for me to finish up a chapter. So, all right, let's get to the story, and things are going to start heating up here, really heating up here. So, hope you're enjoying it and hope you enjoy today's episode. Let's get right to it. Herm Standbaugh had his Gulf War ball cap pulled low to block the late afternoon sun as he pulled a kicker baler behind his tractor, gathering the last hay harvest of the season. A large black Chevy Suburban turned up his drive and came to a halt. Two men in suits got out and motioned for him. This can't be good, he thought. He approached slowly and saw that the vehicle had federal government plates. The men walked out to meet him. When they were 20 feet away, he shut down the tractor. "What can I do for you?" Standbaugh asked. "Are you Herman Standbaugh?" "Yup." "I'm Dan Barkley with the U.S. Department of Agriculture," said a thin, red-haired 40-something. He motioned with his left hand. "And this is Ahmed Al-Farzi with IPAP." "With what?" "IPAP." "I heard you the first time. What the hell is IPAP?" "The International Protocol for Agricultural Practices," said the graying Egyptian. "Certainly you've heard of it." "Can't say that I have." "Don't you watch the news?" Barkley asked. "No, it ain't nothing but bad news." "Well, if you did, you would know that the U.S. has joined IPAP as part of a global effort to standardize sustainable agricultural practices around the world and ensure that farmers produce crops in accordance with global needs." Standbaugh pulled out a pack of cigarettes, slapped one out, and lit it. "Those things will kill you," Al-Farzi said. "I doubt it," Standbaugh said as he exhaled a puff of smoke. "I just picked up the habit a few weeks ago, and I kind of like it." Barkley and Al-Farzi looked to one another with scrunched eyebrows. "That was a pretty stupid thing to do," Barkley said. "The government's been trying to encourage people to quit for years." "Yup," replied Standbaugh. "And if the government says it, there's a 99% chance it's dead wrong." He dragged heavily and blew out a large cloud. "So the odds are in my favor." "You Americans are unbelievable," Al-Farzi responded. "Anyhow," Barkley said, tilting his head, "we're visiting farms across America to gather data on what methods farmers are using and what crops are being planted." "Why don't you just look at all those forms I have to send in to you boys every month? All the information should be there." "We don't have the authority to use that data for this purpose," Barkley answered. "And IPAP wants to gather its own data," Al-Farzi added. "So we're going to go through all the same crap again?" "That's one way of looking at it," Barkley said. "And then you're going to tell me how to run my farm and what I can plant?" "I think you're," Al-Farzi began, but was cut off by Standbaugh. "Either you boys farmed?" "We both have advanced degrees in agricultural science," Barkley said. "That ain't what I asked you. Either of you ever farmed before?" The agents looked to one another. "Listen," Standbaugh huffed. "I don't need a federal agent and a camel jockey to tell me how to farm. And I'm going to damn well plant whatever the hell I want. This land has been in my family for 5 generations, and I know what to do with it." "I don't like your racist name-calling," Al-Farzi responded angrily. "I don't really care," Standbaugh snorted. He flicked the cigarette to the ground at the Egyptian's feet. Barkley pulled a cell phone out of his pocket and waved it in the air. "Failing to cooperate with this international project is a crime, so either you can work with us or I'll have our law enforcement boys up your ass in 5 minutes. Standbaugh clenched his teeth, and his hands began to shake. "They've really gone and done it," he thought. "They've come to take my farm." "Get the hell off my property," Standbaugh said with a snarl. Barkley scrunched his shoulders. "Suit yourself, old man. You just landed yourself 5 years in the can, and you're going to lose this damn farm." Barkley began punching numbers into his phone with his thumb. Standbaugh reached down, grabbed the old pump-action 12-gauge shotgun stashed at his feet on the tractor, and aimed it at Barkley's face. "Throw the phone to the ground right now. I don't want no calls being traced." "You are in serious trouble now, Mr. Standbaugh," Al-Farzi said. Standbaugh turned the gun toward the Egyptian. "Who's in trouble?" Out of the corner of his eye, he saw that Barkley was still staring at him, but had lowered his cell phone and was still pushing buttons with his thumb. Stanbaugh pivoted toward Barkley and fired the gun, blowing most of Barkley's face away with a splatter of blood and flesh and sending him sprawling backward. Stanbaugh pumped the gun and ejected the empty shell. He turned the gun to Alfarzi, who was reaching into his coat. Stanbaugh fired a second time. It was after midnight when Stanbaugh turned off the engine of his backhoe. He walked to his skid steer, which had the bodies of the two agents in its bucket. Stanbaugh looked at the corpses with disgust. They made me do it, he thought. I didn't have any choice. They threatened me. I had to defend myself. They made me do it. Damn the bastards for making me do it. Stanbaugh fired up the engine and deposited the bodies into the crater he had excavated. After parking the skid steer, he walked down the lane to the agent's Suburban, which he drove into the pit. He crawled out of the hole, climbed back into the backhoe, and began moving scoops of earth back into the hole. Bastards thought they'd take my farm, he muttered, his steamy breath rising in the chilly air. My farm took them. President Maynard sat in the Oval Office, his elbows on his desk and his hands on the side of his face. He stared at the order from the Federal District Court. Son of a bitch. The president looked up to his chief of staff, who was standing in front of the desk. Maynard picked up the order and leaned back in his chair. He looked at the papers once more and then flipped the order into a trash can. I can't believe some nitwit district court judge granted a temporary injunction on the big compromise. Do you want me to go talk to him, boss? Pirelli asked. The president shook his head no, and then rubbed his forehead. You are a lawyer, Tony. Give it to me in plain English. The judge said the plaintiffs had a strong chance of success of showing that the big compromise was unfair and that it levied taxes on retirement plans based on current income and not on anticipated taxable withdrawals in the future. The big compromise doesn't take into account people's other source of retirement revenue or the lack of other sources, and therefore it will overtax some people and undertake others by not taking individual retirement planning into account. The president snuffled. Judges are supposed to be with us, not against us, Tony. What the hell? Pirelli shrugged his shoulders. Judicial independence? It's a bad time for that. The stock market is plummeting and the value of these accounts is getting wiped out. We need to get at that money before there's nothing left. Like I said, I can go talk to the judge. Pirelli cracked his knuckles. As much as I think that'd be a great idea, I'm going to take a pass this time. The president sighed. It's just a temporary injunction, right? Yeah, that's right. All right, call all forces. Everyone you can think of, every lawyer and lobbyist. We've got to win this damn thing and fast. I know the Supreme Court will side with us if it gets that far, but we can't afford for it to go on that long. The sooner we get the big compromise implemented, the better off we'll all be. No doubt about that. A toothy grin grew on Pirelli's face, and he raised his thick eyebrows. All forces, you say? That I can deliver. Authorities still have no leads in the disappearance of Dan Barkley of the Department of Agriculture and Ahmed Alfarzi of IPAP last week. Their last known location was a coffee shop in Granville, where Alfarzi placed a cell phone call to his secretary. The agents were using a vehicle on loan from the federal government equipped with an EPIRB device like those used on lifeboats, but the device was apparently not working. In light of the disappearance of the two men, as well as an increase in attacks on government employees across the country, President Maynard has ordered an inspection of all government vehicles. The federal government has also issued an apology to the Egyptian government and matched Egypt's $10 million reward for anyone having information that helps solve the mystery of Alfarzi's disappearance. Anyone with such information should contact the FBI immediately. Dylan Johansson piloted his Jeep through the busy suburban streets of Dublin in a military green wool sweater and jeans, on his way to the Delaware County Gun Club. 2 years earlier, the gun club had been located a mere 10 miles from his home, but the relentless amoebic sprawl of Columbus had finally engulfed the city of Delaware, and city gun ordinance forced the club to retreat to the edge of Marion County. A half hour later, he pulled up the dirt lane lined with oaks and beeches that clung to their brown leaves late into November. As he parked in the gravel lot, he heard the crisp crack of gunfire and took him back to his ROTC days at Ohio State, soothing his retired Army soul. He walked to the back of his well-worn Jeep that had replaced his SUV a week earlier after money had gotten tight for the Johanssons following the O'Hare bankruptcy and the disbarment action. Dillon retrieved his pistol case, crossed the gravel lot, and climbed the 4 broad wooden steps to the front porch with 4 easy strides. Once inside, Johansson saw Nate North leaning against the refreshment bar and watching the Ohio State-Iowa football game. He turned to the left and tried to escape to the range undetected. It wasn't that he didn't like North, but his overbearing manner was more than Johansson wanted to deal with when he came to the club for a little alone time. Unfortunately, it was impossible for Johansson's 6'3" frame to go unnoticed. "Yo, Johansson! Over here, buddy!" Dillon turned and forced a smile. "Hey, Nate, what's going on?" "Come on over here and have a pop with me." North leaned back and put his hands in the air. "I'm buying." "I'd love to, big spender, but I don't have a lot of time and I want to sight in my new Beretta Combat Special 45. "You got the Combat Special?" North whistled through his teeth. "I guess Mama's bringing home some serious coin, eh?" Johansson laughed. He had purchased the handgun the previous summer when they still had money, but had been too busy to use it. Dillon turned to the hall leading back to the range. "Hey, wait up, Johansson. I want to check out this new toy, if you don't mind." Dillon heard the heavy heel clump of North's stride. He turned to see North trotting along with a wide smile, like a 45-year-old member of Spanky's gang. Johansson motioned with a wave. "Yeah, come on." As they made their way along the hallway, Johansson looked to North. "I saw on the news that you had some trouble at your company a couple of months ago. Looks like you were pretty pissed." "Pissed? That ain't the word for it, Johansson. They torched my trucks and there is nothing I could do about it. I found out it's not criminal in Ohio if it's part of a strike." Dillon furrowed his eyebrows. "Really? I didn't know that. I wonder why the news didn't say anything about it. The media's in with the government's in with the union, and it's all one big happy family. Let's face it, this country's a disgrace." "Oh, whoa there, big guy. I agree that we have a lot of things that need changing, but I wouldn't say it's a total mess. Try traveling overseas, you'll see what a real mess looks like." "Yeah, maybe so. But I gave up and closed my company." "You closed Northfab? That company's been in your family for a long time." 60 years. But you know, it wasn't the company. It was the desire to work and to be the best. That was what my daddy and granddaddy taught me. When I lost that, I lost the company, even if I kept its doors open. It was more than a name, Johansson." "Wow, that's really sad, Nate." North grinned. "Whatever, Northfab is gone. But you know what's funny? Listening to a guy who wants to turn our legal system on its head, defending this screwed up country. I saw in the dispatch those bastards are going after your license. And they'll get it, too." Johansson stopped. "Not a chance, Nate." North held up his hand. "Listen, man, I like what you tried to do. I think we got a lot of bad laws out there. Trust me, I'm a victim of one. But the lawyers have even more money than the unions. You're pushing them, they've pushed back. You're fighting the ocean." Johansson shook his head. "People know what I'm doing is right. Across the board, people support me. I'm going to win this thing." North chuckled. "Believe it if you want, but you don't have a chance. Follow the money." "But hey, maybe I'm wrong. That happens every now and again." North winked and slapped Johansson's pistol case. "Now let's go back and see how this puppy shoots." The two walked through a wooden door and entered the range, a long concrete corridor covered by an aluminum roof, with a wall along the left side and a series of wooden dividers along the right. They entered the last stall, a small area with a wooden pedestal in the middle, on which a shooter could set guns and ammunition or lean against to steady his shot. The target was out in the open, with a high grassy ridge behind it. Johansson set the pistol case on the post and opened it. "Whoa, dude, that son of a bitch is a beauty," North said. Dillon smiled, opened a case of ammunition, and loaded 6 into the gun. The two donned ear protection, and Johansson walked forward, kneeled, and then lay on the concrete ground. He aimed at a small target 20 years away and sighted in the target. Crack! 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 After he had discharged the weapon, he stood and pushed a red button on a treated 6x6 post. A machine removed the paper target and replaced it with a new one. As he walked back for more ammunition, North held his palms up. What do you say, buddy? Can I have a test ride? Well, I came out here for a little quiet time with my new gun, but with you around, that's kind of difficult. North laughed. You're funny, Johansson. Nate slugged him on the arm. What do you say? I don't think I have a choice. Johansson grasped the gun by the barrel and extended it to North. Thank you, Nate said, accepting the weapon. He knelt down and reloaded the pistol. As he walked out to firing position, he turned to Johansson. How about I make each one of these shots count? Johansson had a perplexed look as North hoisted his jeans before lying down and aiming. Here's one for the unions. Crack. Here's one for big business. Crack. Here's another one for the unions. Crack. Here's one for the government. Crack. And here's a third one for the unions. Crack. North looked back to Johansson. It's your gun, so let me finish this round with one for you. North turned back to the target and aimed. And here's one for the damn lawyers are screwing my buddy over. Crack. Per curiam, Supreme Court of the United States. United States v. Roth et al. On petition for certiorari, number 29-1036, decided November 30, 2029. Per curiam. The United States has petitioned this court to review the District Court's permanent injunction, which bars implementation of the Emergency Revenue Act of 2029, commonly known as the Big Compromise. This court will not second-guess the well-reasoned opinion of the District Court judge, and the Big Compromise shall not be implemented. Petitioner's request for review is hereby denied. It is so ordered. President Maynard paced behind his desk with an index finger over his mouth as Chief of Staff Corelli and Secretary Waters stood quietly and waited. I don't think I have to tell you my disappointment that the Big Compromise got shot down by the courts, he said. I also don't have to tell you that the train is coming off the tracks. The economy is disintegrating, revenues are plummeting, and no one is interested in buying Treasury debt anymore. Those who are willing are asking extortion-level interest rates. What was yesterday's sale like, Ben? We only sold about half of what we had hoped, the Secretary replied. Investors are asking for a huge risk premium when they're willing to buy it all. What we sold went for over 15% interest. Everyone's afraid of default, and that's the bottom line. The President turned and looked out the window. We have no choice but to swallow a big dose of fiscal austerity. Please tell me you're not considering cutting spending, Waters said. Maynard spun on his heel and pointed at the Treasury Secretary. We are in an emergency situation here, Ben, and I have limited tools at my disposal. I can and must do anything I can to fix this situation and put America back on track. I understand your economic philosophy of deficit spending to spur growth, but that's not an option right now, at least as long as Sullivan is holding us on a short leash. Waters' green eyes sparkled, and he smirked. Maybe we need to cut the leash. That's a discussion for another day, Ben. He rubbed his hands together. Before I get into the details, maybe I need to describe the blueprint a little more. I think that revenue increases are the long-term solution to our fiscal problems. Americans don't want us to ditch Social Security or Medicare. But in the current situation, I think we need more than just revenues. I'm not talking about the elimination of programs, just short-term austerity measures. It's politically critical that we do something on the spending side, or Republicans are going to turn a large part of the country against us, especially independents. If everyone sees that we're working on both sides of the coin, we'll win over the minds of most Americans, and the Republicans will look uncompromising. They are, Pirelli said. Maynard smiled. Anyhow, that's the basic blueprint. Major targeted tax increases to bring in revenue, and short-term spending cuts to bring down expenditures. Maynard turned and looked out the window again. Democrats have fought for a century to get the federal government to this point, and I will do what it takes to ensure that the skeleton stays intact without jeopardizing the future of the country. President Maynard stood and faced his chief of staff and the Treasury Secretary. Even if you disagree with some of the particulars, don't lose sight of the forest for the trees. Save the country and preserve the architecture. Those are the goals. So that's the conclusion of episode 17 of The Eagle Has Crashed. Looks like the federal government's back to square one in trying to figure out how to solve the problem. And also looks like some people are starting to come unglued. Anyhow, hope you're enjoying the story. And as always, a copy of the book can be purchased at my site, Clear Peak Press, at Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, the Sony Store, the iTunes Store, Smashwords, and other retailers. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a great week, and we'll move on to December of 2029 next week. Have a great day.